Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. First and foremost, thank you to all of you. Thank you very much to all the fine folks that are supporting me over on Patreon. You can do so at patreon.com/pack_daddy. For as little as free, or $1 a month, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Shout out to Chuck, who just joined. See you over there, buddy. Appreciate you. Also want to say apologize for yesterday. I think I mentioned this before, but I'm having like once or twice a week where the tiredness hits me so hard it's unbearable. Like I'm aching. I'm just freaking dying. And it was about 9 o'clock at night. I was about to start recording, and I'm like, I just can't. I cannot do it. So, feeling a little better today. So far, no issues. So away we go. We'll see if we get to Packernet after dark. But today's going to be a little bit of a news and notesy day. There's a lot of stuff here that I want to get caught up on. So that's what we'll do, and we'll see where that leaves us. First of all, I saw this, and I'm 75% sure it's not true, but it's hilarious, so I'm going to report the news. Taylor Swift held a contest to perform at any U.S. high school, but online trolls took over and voted for a school for the deaf. Oh, sorry, that's funny. Don't tell my wife I told that joke. She'll get mad at me. In other NFL news, Travis Hunter apparently will plan to play full-time cornerback next year. In other news, freaking duh, bro. I freaking told you. This whole thing was so stupid, and it's all because of Deion Sanders. It's all because that guy was a two-way player, and he hyped up this kid to be a two-way player, and there's no doubt he's fine in either, but that doesn't matter. You shouldn't do that. There's no benefit to that. Who cares? And what did I say? You're not going to be properly compensated. You're going to wear out the tread. You're going to increase your injury risk, and you're probably not going to perform as well because nobody can study an offense and a defense in a full year. And so then all of a sudden you're going to be looked at as a bust. For what? For some freaking gimmick? How absolutely stupid. And the Jaguars are stupid enough to play into that stupid gimmick. The kid got hurt. He didn't play particularly well. It was stupid. It was always stupid. So now they've decided, okay, you're going to be a corner. We'll still, use you as a wide receiver once in a while, but, it's pretty much going to be a corner now. Freaking duh. Jeez. In other news, Stefon Diggs found himself in a bit of trouble. Not that it's anything new to him. He apparently is facing one felony count of strangulation or suffocation under Massachusetts law. One misdemeanor count of assault and battery. The alleged victim is his former private/personal chef. I don't know if you listened to yesterday's NFL draft show, but this is just a continuation of that nightmare. My brain is just all turned it up. Anyways, he had a personal chef at his house in Massachusetts, and he freaking strangled a guy or something. I don't know. Actually, it's a female, so that makes it even better. Female chef apparently went to him and said, "You owe me money," and he choked her. Slapped her across the face, then tried to choke her using the crook of his elbow around her neck. She reported to having difficulty breathing, feeling like she might lose consciousness, and said he then threw her onto the bed before leaving the room. Obviously, he denies any of this happening, and I'm skeptical that anything super serious is going to happen because that's usually how these things pan out. But we'll see if this ends up being serious enough for any real action to take place. Speaking of wide receivers, I had mentioned before George Pickens that it was basically a guarantee that they were going to end up tagging him. Turns out I missed a small detail in there. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport said the Cowboys, quote-unquote, are going to franchise tag wide receiver George Pickens and could be willing to trade him away for a second-round pick. So a potential tag and trade here for George Pickens. Part of this, a lot of this doesn't matter because a lot of these have nothing to do with the Packers. There's almost no scenario in my mind that we give up a second, our first pick, which is in the second for any player, but especially for a receiver, especially a receiver like George Pickens, who also is a little bit out there. The question I more so have is where would he end up? And specifically, is he going to end up in the NFC North somewhere else? I'm less concerned with George Pickens as some of the other guys we're going to talk about, but it's worth noting that the Cowboys may be looking to move George Pickens. As far as the rest of the NFC North is concerned, it's kind of tough to imagine that would happen. Everybody's pretty well set on wide receivers. I mean, honestly, the Packers would make maybe the most sense for not having like a true wide receiver one type of guy. The Vikings already have Justin Jefferson. The Bears have a ton of wide receivers. They have significant needs all over the defense. I can't imagine wide receiver would make any sense. And then similar for Detroit. I mean, the defense would make much more sense. But, it could possibly make sense just based on the position. George Pickens as your X, and then you got your slot as Amon-Ra, and you got your speedster on the other side. But still, I can't imagine. I don't think that this is a move any NFC North team is going to make, but crazier things have happened. That brings us to things that scare me significantly more. And we'll start off with this. There was an article over here by CincyJungle.com. Trey Hendrickson free agent prediction has him joining the Chicago Bears. And the part that bothered me is the part where it makes a ton of sense. The Bears are desperate for defensive help, especially on the defensive line. Now, the problem is they have one decent edge rusher, and he's already really old and on the way out. Trey Hendrickson does not have very much time left. He's already in his 30s. I don't know how old, 31 something. But if they feel like, hey, we already went to the playoffs, we already had this thing cooking pretty well, if we can just add some defensive pieces, we can really get going here. It's not impossible. In addition, this is obviously just an opinion piece. Fox Sports' Greg Auman was just, his prediction. The problem is it could really be anyone in the NFC North. The Vikings have shown a penchant for going out and getting old guys, although they're getting a new GM here at some point. So I don't know exactly what their plans are going to be. But the Lions also, I haven't looked at, I've just looked at our offseason here as far as salary cap and whatnot. I don't know what theirs looks like. But the Lions adding a guy like Trey Hendrickson or somebody else that we'll talk about in a second is genuinely terrifying. Now, I don't think it's going to happen for the same reason that I don't think that Trey Hendrickson would come to Green Bay, and that is they've already got a guy that they're paying $1 billion to play edge. Adding a complement to him makes sense. Paying for one of the top guys to come play across from the other guy that's being paid to be a top guy is kind of an iffy strategy, but, again, it's probably short term. You'd have to kind of... Ooh, that's crazy. Sorry, I gotta stop looking at Twitter news. Similar to the Bears, if it's kind of an all-in strategy, I need to protect my job. We gotta get into the playoffs. We gotta do something big. Whatever. I don't know. Possibly. The only problem is Trey Hendrickson is not only going to be looking for money, he's going to be looking for a fit, which I think anywhere in the NFC North could make sense. Vikings would be a tough sell unless they go get a quarterback. He's looking for a team that can compete. And I think he also wants security. Anytime you're at that age, nobody wants to come in and be like, hey, you want to take my 1-year deal and see if you can get us a Super Bowl? Screw you. I want as much security as I can possibly get, and I don't know that the Lions would be looking to do something like that. So either way, it makes me a little nervous, and Chicago is the one that makes me the most nervous. They desperately need defensive help, especially on the defensive line, and a Trey Hendrickson signing could really move the needle a lot for the Chicago Bears. They already upgraded their offensive line. The quarterback, he obviously can do things in certain times. The run game probably will improve because I'm guessing they're going to add a running back either in the draft or free agency or probably both. It's just a question of, can they find some premier talent on the defense? And a guy like this moves the needle tremendously. And even though it's another short-term thing and it's kind of a you're being stupid, this is not going to help you long-term, it's going to be annoying in the short term because in the short term, we're also trying to win. And it's annoying constantly trying to compete with all these short-sighted idiots who keep doing these short-term things that make them really good for like a year and then suck for 5. But the problem is next year the Vikings are going to do it, and then the year after that the Lions are going to do it, and every year we're up against some jagoff who's on some like freaking 1-year spike before they tank their team. It's like, you guys all suck, man. I hate you. That brings me to this report from whatever this is on Twitter. Max Crosby, it's via Tom Pelissero. Max Crosby's relationship with the Raiders, quote unquote, needs a lot of repairing. It says there are a lot of other fences that would need to be mended for him to stay in Vegas. It's not irreparable, but there's a lot to repair. Now, I hate to jump to this because I'm jumping the gun a little bit. They did just hire a defensive coordinator. Apparently, that defensive coordinator, I don't remember the exact ties, but has a very good relationship with Max Crosby. So I'm guessing whether it was the entire reason or part of the reason or what, I'm guessing it doesn't hurt that they went out and got a guy that's going to basically try to recruit one of their best players to stay with the Raiders. I absolutely hope that happens. I want Max Crosby to stay with the Raiders forever. It's some AFC team that I couldn't give a crap about. And it guarantees he doesn't end up a Viking, a Bear, or a Lion, or any other NFC team for that matter. I don't want him to be an Eagle. I don't want him to be a freaking Seahawk or a 49er. I don't need any of that crap. So I'm all for the offseason drama. I'm a fan of it. I like it. It's all fun. But at the end of the day, please stay with the Raiders. And if you do move, stay in the AFC, preferably a team that's not good. I'm sure he's going to want to go to a competitor, but don't go to the Chiefs and revitalize them, please. Some Aaron Rodgers news, and I don't know how much of a report this is as opposed to speculation that we all kind of assume, but ESPN's Brooke Pryor reports that Aaron Rodgers is more likely than not to play for the Steelers in 2026. Now, again, part of that is like, ooh, wow, cool. The other part of me says, no kidding. We all think that. Are you just saying what you think, which is what we all think, or is there something behind this? But it goes on to say Pryor believes that the Steelers would like to know Rodgers' intentions sooner rather than later, ideally before the NFL Combine for scouting purposes. That's hilarious and adorable that they think that they're going to dictate Aaron Rodgers' timeline. Hey, Rodgers, we'd love it if you could tell us what you want to do so we can make plans. Yeah, that's nice. I'm frickin' tripping on peyote, okay? So, sorry. Unless you're going to tie a note to a parrot and send it to me in the Andes Mountains or something, I will not receive your message. Don't get reception, that whole thing. Either way, again, it's a useless report, but it's a fun and exciting report. I want Rodgers back. The Steelers with Rodgers and McCarthy and the whole Green Bay Packers crew, it's just got me giddy, Again, assuming they don't go and win a Super Bowl, because you can't do that, but playoffs, maybe you can meet us in the Super Bowl, but again, we have to win. Otherwise, I'm going to be ticked. All right, let's take a break here. There's a couple other things that are either NFC North or are kind of bigger things to talk about, so we'll just take a break here, and we'll be right back. So I was going to save this for the Green Bay Packers portion, but since I kind of mentioned it, let's just get it out of the way. Raiders promoted former run game coordinator, defensive line coach Rob Leonard to defensive coordinator. He previously spent 6 seasons with the Giants, blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to see if that Max Crosby, here we go. Leonard worked closely with Pro Bowl defensive lineman Max Crosby, potentially making a play at retaining him. So that was that part. The more important part, though, is 5 minutes, not literally, but very close to, before the news broke about this, was this. Raiders interviewed Packers defensive line coach, run game coordinator DeMarcus Covington for their vacant defensive coordinator position. I mean, literally, I forget the site, but there's like a news feed where I go and check and grab some news and whatnot that's going on around the league. They were right next to each other. It was this, and then within probably an hour or two, the other one. So I'm going to take that as good news. I was going to act all celebratory on social media, and I figured all I'm going to get is a bunch of hate online about, oh, well, who cares? You sucked last year. Our defensive line sucked. Okay, yeah, fine. I don't know. I also don't know that he's going to be our defensive line coach. That's just kind of an assumption, is that If he doesn't get hired away, he'll just resume his duties, and I do think that that'll happen. But it's possible they're just hoping he goes and gets a new job so that they don't have to cut him the bad news. That would be kind of a bad way of doing things, though, because, well, maybe not. If you fire the guy, his odds of getting a defensive coordinator position are basically zero. But you at least want to make him aware that he probably doesn't have a job because he hasn't really been interviewing for defensive line coordinator or defensive line coach jobs either. But I'm guessing we'll have a resolution because I don't think there's a lot of other defensive coordinator jobs out there, if any. So if this job gets secured, I think it's basically he's coming back. And again, I know our defensive line wasn't great last year. I still like it. He's a very experienced guy. We have a completely different defensive scheme now. It's so hard to know definitively. It's hard to blame him for things. I mean, ultimately, it's the defensive coordinator's job to put guys in the right position. And it's, his job to essentially just make sure that they're doing what the defensive coordinator wants. So it's hard to know where in that chain things went wrong, especially since they didn't go wrong until Micah went out and then everything kind of fell apart for the most part. So the bottom line is he's an extremely experienced and I don't want to say qualified because I don't want to just assume, but if you're looking for a defensive line expert to help you, especially when you have a defensive coordinator that is mostly a DB coverage type of guy, I think you've got a home run here having a guy like Covington running that defensive front, especially now that we've brought in a pass rush specialist to kind of specialize or help add a little something to that particular portion of things. You know what I mean? All right, the biggest news that's been going on lately is in regard to the report cards. It's a very weird situation. If you remember, every year, the NFLPA, which is the Players Association, sends out a survey to all the players. They rank things, the facilities, the coaches, the locker room, whatever. And then the NFLPA puts out a report card for each team. Apparently, the NFL said, all right, we don't like this. The NFL argued that it violates the CBA clause requiring both sides to use reasonable efforts to curtail public comments criticizing clubs, coaches, or operations, which makes sense because if you give somebody an F on a report card, that's not great. The league pointed to its constitutional bylaws, which bar players from publicly criticizing clubs or personnel, and said the report cards were effectively organized public criticism. In its memo, the NFL also attacked the methodology, saying NFLPA witnesses admitted to cherry-picking topics, responses, and quotes, weighting certain items to influence grades, and not letting players draft the written commentary. Now, I will say this. The grades are certainly interesting. It's good to know where your team lines up. It's always funny to make fun of the teams that suck, and it's hopeful that your team doesn't end up there. It also sucks to see where your team kind of falls short. But here's something else to consider. The teams have made efforts. The Green Bay Packers have made efforts to improve in certain areas, as have other teams. So I do think good comes from this. With that being said, the public outcry is that this is awful and the NFL is doing a terrible thing. I will say, and so has the court, it's pretty cut and dry that you are violating the CBA. You agreed to this, and you're very obviously breaking that thing. The ruling prohibits the NFLPA from publishing or publicly disclosing results of any future team report cards, so there will be no more public team-by-team grades like the 2023 to 2025 releases. The decision explicitly treated the public report cards as disparaging of clubs and individuals under the CBA language, which is what triggered the violation finding. In an internal memo, the NFL said the record showed the report cards were designed to advance the union's interest under the guise of scientific exercise, with numerous and significant limitations in accuracy. In other words, this was certainly not an official survey done by a professional company or anything. This was a worksheet handed out to people, and then they gathered it and then cobble together whatever they wanted to put out whatever message they felt they needed to. The NFLPA pushed back, saying that they rejected the NFL's characterization of the process, called the report cards fair and balanced with methodology it insisted is sound. The 2025 season's players survey were already collected and were supposed to be published in spring of 2026, but those results will now be kept private under the ruling. Teams are being told to solicit feedback directly from their own players instead of worrying about public grades that can embarrass ownership or staff. Supposedly, the leading voice pushing for this was Woody Johnson, the Jets owner. Multiple outlets say Jets owner Woody Johnson led the charge or was the central figure among owners in the push to end the NFLPA team report cards. Not surprisingly, Johnson got the only F ownership grade in the last public report card, and the Jets ranked 29th overall, which he publicly called totally bogus and questioned the methodology. Reporting from Wickersham Van Natta and others say he complained to Goodell and other owners about how the information was gathered and used, and then became a key driver behind the grievance that ultimately ended the public releases. The latest from this recording is from Brooke Pryor over at ESPN NFL reporter covering the Steelers and other things. It says, in an email sent to all players today and obtained by ESPN, the NFLPA reaffirmed its commitment to the report cards and noted the only thing changing is their ability to publicly share the results. The results of the 2026 report cards will be released to players soon. That is freaking hilarious. Do you know why that's hilarious? Because as far as I know, and I didn't read the court ruling. What is preventing this news from becoming public? Do you know how unbelievably easy it's going to be? First of all, so what presumably what the court found is that you can't publicly go out and just shame another team or owners or whatever. That's against the NFLPA. You're not supposed to do that. Okay, fine. So what is going to stop? Because basically there's thousands of NFL players, by the way. Every single one of them is going to be receiving these report cards. How many milliseconds before Ian Rappaport and everybody else has a full copy of this? And maybe because they're kind of like, close in with these teams, they don't want to cross the teams, so they won't be publishing it. But this is going to be they can't contain this. It's going to be so far and wide. For this to get leaked to somebody who isn't in the pocket of the NFL or whatever, let's see, he works for ESPN now. Barstool? You think Barstool can't get a copy of this and release it in full? They're not under NFLPA obligations. All it takes is for any old player to email it to anybody in the media that's willing to listen and get the full grades and then release all those grades. And who violated anything? Now, if they find the player, but even then, what did he do wrong? He didn't release it to anybody publicly. He was just sharing it with a buddy of his who happened to go on to share it, who also didn't violate anything. You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to be under the condition of anonymity, and there's going to be no recourse for them to reveal who that is. But I think that's hilarious, and I think that they know this. I think the NFLPA knows this entirely. That, okay, fine, we won't release it publicly. We'll just give it to all the players and all of the coaches and we're going to give it to everybody. It's going to be spread so far and wide that it's nearly impossible in my mind. Even if they talk to the players and they say, don't you dare, or you could be suspended, whatever. And almost every single, you're telling me not one player. Think about how many former players, by the way, are in the media now. You think they're not going to be sending out text messages like, bro, let me see. They're all going to, so the entire media apparatus is going to know. That's the other thing. So even if they don't fully release it, they're going to know. They're going to say, yeah, I saw it. They're going to make hints. They're going to make, little jokes behind it. And we're all going to figure it out. I was told not to say anything, but I mean, let's just say not much has changed with the Jets. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like this is not going to stay a secret. There's no way. So I find this hilarious, and I think it is a hilariously petty and borderline brilliant move by the NFLP, assuming that's their intention. I don't know, but it makes sense to just be like, oh, that's fine. We won't. We won't violate anything the court says, but we all are going to very, very privately send this to everybody. We're going to mass email this to about 3,000 people. And I'm sure they'll all keep it a secret, you know? I'm just like picturing Woody Johnson just throwing an absolute fit. I mean, he's on the phone with his lawyers. He's on the phone with Goodell. You have to stop this. He's calling the other owners, driving them nuts. Like, can you believe this? What are we going to do about this? Like, bro, I don't know. Freaking wash your toilets, dude. I don't know what to tell you. So I found that hilarious. We'll keep an eye on when that gets released. And we'll see. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Maybe everybody keeps it under wraps, but I just doubt it. You know what I mean? Because there is kind of an us versus them mentality. They're not going to want to like protect bad owners. You know, like, oh, well, you know, I don't want to embarrass Woody Johnson. You know what I mean? I don't want him to feel bad. You're the one who did the survey and said, yeah, he sucks, bro. I'm guessing a lot of these guys want it public. That's why they did it in the first place. If they cared about the feelings of their owners and their organization, they would have just given A's across the board. No, you're doing a great job, pal. They essentially, when they did these surveys before, knew that they were publicly shaming their owners and their coaches and everybody else. They knew it was going to be publicly released. So you kind of know that they're trying to publicly shame all of these people. In doing so, they want this to be publicly negative. That's why they did it. So why would they hide it now? In other legal issues, ESPN's Adam Schefter reports a court ruled that discrimination cases filed against the NFL by Brian Flores, Steve Wilks, and Ray Horton now can proceed in open court. Again, this is why I've said, I don't know why anybody would hire this guy as a head coach as he's actively suing the entire NFL. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I'll see you in court when I openly try to sue you for all your money because you're a raving racist. But anywho, I think I would make a great head coach for your organization. I'm a great leader. I'm loyal, you know. Get the hell out of my office, bro. He also, by the way, essentially was suing football teams for interviewing him because when he didn't get the job, he said, well, you're just trying to satisfy the Rooney Rule, which, first of all, that is the dumbest thing on planet Earth. Colin Kaepernick did the same thing. The teams that interviewed him, he sued them. So serves you right for trying to help the guy. But second of all, I mean, they're obligated to do it. And now if they do it, they get sued. This is great. I love the Rooney Rule is fantastic. It's so good. So you have a candidate? Cool. I need you to interview that guy over there. And then when you don't hire him, he's going to sue you. This is going well. Everything's going really well. And Steve Wilks and Ray Horton essentially jumped on the Brian Flores case because it's a class action lawsuit. So there's that. Basically saying that the NFL is racist by forcing teams to interview black coaches. Anywho, I don't know all the ins and outs of exactly what the complaint says, but it looks like... So here's my thought. I think the best that they're going to be able to determine is what everybody already knows, which is that the Rooney Rule is basically a sham. Not entirely. I'm sure at times when people are completely wide open to candidates, they're fine. They were planning on interviewing 5, 6, 7 coaches anyways, and some of them are going to be black or whatever race. But in some cases, like in the case of the Giants with Brian Daboll, they knew. They're like, that's our guy. But there's a rule you have to fulfill, so they went out and did it. And then Bill Belichick's an idiot and texted Brian Flores saying, congrats, Brian Daboll, or whatever kind of thing. It sounded like sabotage to me, but essentially setting up the pretext for all of this where that, you know, sort of proof that there's a sham process or whatever. The problem is, I think if that was the argument, you could possibly win something. I don't know if you can sue based on that, but if you were to sue Flores wanted to sue the Giants specifically for not genuinely giving him an opportunity. Maybe there's something there. Trying to sue based on racial discrimination is not something he's ever going to win. There is zero proof of that. And trying to say, look at the stats, is never going to work. You can't just say, look at the stats. That doesn't prove anything. Okay, look at the stats of NFL corners that are white. What does that mean? It means nothing. It means zero things. Stats aren't going to do it. So unless you got text messages from Bill Belichick also saying, sorry, we don't hire black people here, you're not going to win this lawsuit. And so the reality is the only evidence they have, which is very, very slim, I think there's like 2 incidents that came up that make it seem like they were sham hirings, which of course they are. The Rudy Rule is always, it's inevitable that it's going to lead to sham interviews. Any instance in which you know who you're going to hire, like the Chicago Bears, you think they didn't know who they were going to hire? A guy that was a white dude? You're telling me that every single black person that they interviewed wasn't 100% a sham? Of course it was. They had no interest in hiring anybody else except the guy that they hired. Every single NFL team wanted Ben Johnson, and given the opportunity, would have hired Ben Johnson. They didn't give a crap about anybody else, and they never seriously considered anybody else but Ben Johnson. I promise you that. Did they do something wrong? Of course they didn't. Their job is to find the best coach, and they did that. They got Ben Johnson. That was the best guy, the guy that everybody wanted. They didn't do anything wrong by hiring him. The only thing they did was break a stupid rule that shouldn't exist to begin with. And they certainly didn't do it because they hate certain people because of the color of their skin. That's childish thinking. And that's why Brian Flores is a child for what he's doing, as is Wilkes. This, oh, poor me, I should be better than, I should be given better opportunities than what I'm being given, but I'm not just because you hate me. Oh, poor you. Do you know how many people would love to have the opportunities that you've been given by the NFL, but haven't because they don't have the talent that you have? You've been rewarded for your talent since day one, including being given head coaching roles. And you're a freaking whiny child because you're not getting what you want, because you got fired because your team sucked. And rather than just take accountability and suck it up like a man, like everybody else does when they get fired, and go get a new opportunity and start over and start from the beginning, like Gannon is going to do as a defensive coordinator, he's not whining and crying that it's somebody else's fault, and you just don't let. It's like a kid who gets a D on a paper and says, "Well, she hates me. She just hates me. That's why she." No, it's because you're an idiot and you don't know how to spell. You're stupid and you don't know history. You didn't pay attention in class, so you failed the class. Well, they just don't like me, and I'm going to sue you. Yeah, and you're going to lose because you have no proof, because you're an idiot. So anyways, that's why Flores is never going to be a head coach again. By the way, I wish these people would stop being freaking cowards, because the same people that are going to say everybody's a racist and these people are the most despicable, like KKK people, which, by the way, is a horrific allegation that you better have real good proof before you go just throwing that around. But yet, he'll go walk into an interview with a nice suit and tie and, "Yes, sir, good to meet you, sir," and be all polite. No, how about you go in there and call him a racist to his face during the job interview? Why don't you be a man and actually say what you think? But you won't. Now you're everybody's best friend. Now you're going to be best friend. But then when you don't get the job you want, then you go behind his back and call him a racist and try to sue him, right? You're a freaking coward. I don't want you applying for more jobs. How about that? By the way, why don't you go talk to the Wilfs? Why don't you talk to your own head coach? Why don't you talk to the GM? Well, he got fired and he was also black, but the next guy that gets hired that's white, call him a racist. Call the Wilfs racists. Call the people that are cutting you a check and giving you a living in the NFL as a head coach, as you coach a freaking game. Why don't you call them racist? And tell them that you don't want the job because you don't want to support what's happening here, because something horrible and evil is happening. You know why? Because you don't believe it. You don't believe that this is some kind of an evil institution. If it was, you wouldn't be a part of it. Everybody there treats you well. They're all your best friends. You're all in this together. You all go out together. You hang out together. Everybody knows everybody. You're all good friends. But then when you don't get what you want, you throw a temper tantrum. You're a freaking loser. And I wish you nothing but the worst, Flores. Just so sick of this crap. It's so stupid, right? It's just, I mean, The guy gets hired as a head coach, and it's just another day in the NFL. Nobody's thinking like, whoa, that's crazy. I can't believe it, because it happens all the time. It's not crazy. But then when he gets fired, it's like, see, there's proof. Proof of what? They're the ones that hired him. They hired him, but then realized 3 years later, oh, wait, I forgot I'm racist, and then fired him? What are you, freaking mental? This is how your brain works? Are you that stupid? And it's so perverse all throughout. You know what? If you're an NFL writer, if you're an NFL player, if you're an NFL coach, if you're an NFL GM, if you're any of these people and you think the NFL is what you say it is, why are you supporting it? Stop supporting it. I wouldn't support it if I thought that, but I don't, because it's not. But if you think that, stop supporting it. Stop watching it. Turns out they're all Nazis. They genuinely love murdering the Jewish people. It's what they do on the weekends. But anyways, you watching the game this Sunday? Yeah, nobody would do that. They would think I'm not supporting this. This is horrible. I mean, how much conviction do you actually have if you're going to sit here and support it and make a living on it and watch every single game and study the tape and, oh boy, we're going to do all this? Stop watching it. You have to stop watching it if you believe that. If you believe Flores is telling the truth, why are you watching this? What is wrong with you? Why would you support something like that? Have some pride in yourself. Go do something else. You dedicate this much time to something that evil? Shame on you. But yet, 70% of these NFL writers, they'll all come right along and they'll support it. Almost every single podcaster you listen to, all of them, they'll all, oh yeah, I definitely believe it's all racist. I believe that. Oh yeah? Yeah, and this is what you do with your life? You dedicate your life to this racist organization? That's great. Good for you. That's interesting. That's kind of awful, but okie doke. Dumbest crap I've ever heard in my life. Just throwing around these horrific allegations with no evidence whatsoever because that makes me a good person. I'm just going to start calling people murderers. Anytime somebody does something I don't like, you're a murderer, bro. Why did you kill your whole family? Why'd you do that? It's terrible. I don't listen to people like you that murder their whole family. I don't need to have proof. Just say whatever I want. Anyways, frickin' whatever. If you can tell, it annoys me a little bit because this happens every offseason. We have to have this discussion where essentially I'm told that the sport that I love and people like Brian Gutekunst and people like Ed Policy and Ted Thompson and all these people that I love and revere are actually seething racists. And I kind of take that personally, and I don't care for that very much, especially people that really have no proof and say it just to score some kind of social points. I find that disgusting and despicable, and I'm getting tired of it. There's a lot of very, very, very good people. I'm sure there's terrible people. And if you find them specifically, deal with it. And we have many times. Very despicable people have been rooted out. Look at what happened in Washington. The people in the NFL found out about it, and they wanted him out. They're the ones that uncovered everything. The owners and everything else. They're the ones that uncovered everything because they said he's despicable and we don't want him in here. And they rooted him out. If you find it, uncover it. Great. But don't give me this bull crap about I didn't get the job that I want because you're racist. Stupid. Take a break. We'll be right back. So the Chicago Bears, we've been talking about for a while now. They've been getting wooed by Indiana. It looked like it was getting real close. And then Illinois, the politicians decided, you know what? Maybe we should kind of start having some conversations. And it sounds like maybe that's the direction it's going to end up. Well, not so quick, because Iowa now has joined the fight. Man in Cambodia has bird flu. I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want to freaking hear it. Don't start. Don't give a crap. Don't freaking care, all right? Talk to me when he starts growing feathers and flying around. Iowa state senators have introduced a bill to entice the Chicago Bears to relocate by expanding the state's Major Economic Growth Attraction Program, or MEGA. I sometimes wonder how long they sit there and they're like, what should we call this thing? And then they come up with something. They're like, but I want it to spell something cool. You know what I mean? Like, what if we call it the sports program? It's like, that's SP. That's not a thing. Okay, what about economic sports? Like, what are we trying to do? ESPN? How long did it take for them to come up with Major Economic Growth Attraction Program? There's clearly two words in there that are unnecessary, but we wanted to say mega. It's the mega program. You freaking idiot. Just you're so stupid. That's why I hate these boards and committees. Like, how much time did you waste on this? You're trying to woo the Bears, but you spent like a day trying to come up with a cool name. I hate all of you. I'm in a bad mood today. I don't know what the deal is. Offering tax credits, refunds, and incentives for building an NFL stadium. The proposal targets Bears fans crossing the Mississippi River from Illinois, promising tax stability, infrastructure support, and economic boosts like jobs and tourism. Senate File 2252, backed by 7 Republican senators, including Scott Webster and Carrie Gruenhagen, or Genhagen in some reports. We don't even know the lady's name, apparently, or guy's name. I'm assuming Carrie's a female. I have no idea. Amends Iowa's economic incentives, originally for $1 billion investment in manufacturing and R&D to include NFL stadium projects approved by Iowa Economic Development, blah, 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 blah. So there's now another state in the fight. I don't really give a crap where they go as long as it's not Illinois. Honestly, as long as it's not Chicago, that's a big win, in my opinion. If they end up moving to the suburbs, I find that funny because they want to make fun of how, like, backwoods, Green Bay is or whatever, because, first of all, they've never been to Green Bay. It's not in the middle of the freaking boonies. But now, essentially, they are also just a little suburban. When they start talking about, Chicago. Excuse me, Chicago? You're not in Chicago. The Bears are not in Chicago. I don't care what the title says. Yeah, you're the Chicago Bears, like Korea is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, okay? It's just a title. It means nothing. You're not in Chicago. You're in the freaking suburbs, loser, okay? But if they leave the state, it's 10 times better. And what would be the greatest is if they end up going to some podunk place in either Indiana or Iowa. Put them in the middle of a freaking cornfield. I want to see actual tumbleweeds rolling past this stadium. For all the crap they talked all those years about Wisconsin and being this sort of whatever, small town bullcrap, I want to put them in a town with 40 people. I don't care if it's across the street from a metropolitan area filled with millions of people to come work the stadium. I want the official town that it's located in to have 40 as the official population, because screw them. No Bears response yet. Iowa lacks major pro sports teams. Poor Iowa. Nobody. The Bears didn't even freaking pick up the phone. Whatever. I don't care. I find it hilarious. Being wooed by Iowa. You losers. So your options are what? The suburbs of Illinois, Gary, Indiana as the second Indiana team, or Iowa. You freaking losers. You are the bird flu of the NFL. You know that? I was going to look into this more, but since I'm just in a bad, angry, ranty mood, I'll just read this and move on with my life. Thor Nystrom. It's actually interesting because this is how I used to do it. And I do have to do part 2 of my GM breakdown or whatever. But I used to use AV, weighted AV as my metric. Don't need to go any. I don't feel like explaining it. Thor Nystrom, weighted career approximate value of draft picks since 2022. Seahawks 298, Vikings 132. The point is, he's looking at draft picks and discovering that the Seahawks, who won the Super Bowl, have a 298 if you look at all the draft picks since 2022. Weighted AV. AV is Pro Football References value metric, I guess you'd call it. So they have nearly 300 at 298, the Seahawks have. So Thor Nystrom, who's a Vikings fan, says, okay, well, what have the Vikings done since that time? Looking at Kwesi's, obviously trying to dunk on their old GM that sucks and why they're in this horrible situation that they're in, found that the Vikings have a 132. Well, our very own Wendell Ferreira went and did a little digging on his own. He says, if you don't like Brian Gutekunst, the Packers have generated more weighted career approximate value than the Seahawks since 2022, and everyone, rightly, says John Schneider is on a heater. The Vikings 132, the Bears 221, the Lions 246, the Packers 309. That would make the Packers the best by a lot. More so than the Lions, who have done some very good drafting, and the Seahawks that at least for 2 or 3 of the last several years, which 2022, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's only 4 years. So most of those are probably pretty good. At least 2, at least half. And so there's a big giant screw you to the Schneider people out there. Bunch of, ugh. And then underneath that, Aaron, says, cool, and they have to show for it 3 7 seeds and 1 playoff win. I'm sorry, are we moving the goalpost here? Because I thought we were talking about the quality of the GM's ability to draft, and I was told that Schneider is better than Gutekunst, and now when it's being, I won't say proven, but demonstrated, at least in a quantifiable way, that the Schneider people will not and have not done in any measurable way whatsoever, it's being demonstrated in some way that Gutekunst seems to be doing better than Schneider, even in a small sample size in which Schneider has been at his best. If you go back to 2018, you know how much, first of all, better Gutekunst looks and worse Schneider looks? If you go back from 2018 to 2021, Schneider has maybe 1 good draft pick. Get out of my freaking face. But they only have to show. I'm sorry. What does that have to do with Gutekunst? What is their playoff penchant have to do with Gutekunst? Isn't his job to fill the team with talent? Right? That's his job. And according to what Wendell Ferrer found, he's put more talent on this team than Schneider has put on in Seattle. So what the hell is your point? Your only point is I don't know anything other than Super Bowls as a metric. That's the point. I don't know how to do anything other than count Super Bowls, which, by the way, I this is what pisses me off, because a lot of people, they only look at the top line thing. When you talk about pass rush, they only care about sacks. When you talk about success, they only talk about Super Bowls. When you talk about, a DB, it's only about interceptions. Do you understand that these are the worst possible things you could use to judge something because it is a luck variable? You need to look for the small details, not the big details. The big details don't tell you anything. They don't tell you anything. It's like how many Pro Bowls and All Pros you have or something. It's like, come on, guys. You need to find the small details. If you want to find somebody that's knows what they're talking about, find somebody that looks at a metric, that looks at very fine detail, snapped on a per snap basis. People that are looking for that kind of stuff. You're looking at picks? Do you know how fluky those are? I mean, sacks, there's going to be some correlation to pressures, so it's not a bad metric, but it's not a good metric at all. And Super Bowls, give me a freaking break. But again, that's beside the point. It's being demonstrated to you that Brian Gutekunst, at least in some, again, it's not the be-all, end-all metric, but based on this metric, has done a better job than not only Schneider, but everybody in the NFC North. And your retort is nothing to dispel that whatsoever, other than to say, yeah, but the team has been worse. Okay, what does that have to do with Gutekunst? Maybe that's the coaching staff. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's something, I don't know. I don't know what it is, and neither do you. But what I know that you don't know is that it's not the drafting of talent, which is 5 seconds before you read that, you thought Schneider was better than Gutekunst, didn't you? But now rather than saying, oh boy, that doesn't confirm my priors, that's different, that's interesting, I find that as interesting information. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should reevaluate. Or maybe I should kind of dig into this myself, not to try to disprove it, but just to try to say, if I were to try to determine what is the best way to draft or whatever, that I would do it this way. So let me run the numbers and just see objectively what I find. No. The immediate response is, I don't like that because I don't like Gutekunst, and I think Schneider is better because Schneider won a Super. He's got 2 Super Bowls, so he's obviously better. And so this pisses me off, and so I'm just going to say some random bullcrap about how he's been not even been more successful, because he hasn't been more successful. He won a Super Bowl this year. Prior to this year, he hasn't in any way been more successful since Gutekunst has been a GM, at least. But he won a Super Bowl, and we've been to the playoffs as 7 seeds. And this is why it's so annoying arguing with people, because they don't actually care about what's real. You can prove to somebody they're wrong, and they don't care. This is the thing that drives me nuts about human nature in general. In any area whatsoever, you can prove to somebody, and it's just going to piss them off. I have proof you're wrong. There's no relief. There's not, oh, man, that's crazy. It's anger, and I'm going to run away because I don't want to hear any more of this. What are you doing? Why does nobody want to be right? It's unbelievable to me. Maybe I'm the weird one. I love being right about stuff. I want to be right. That's why I change my mind all the time, because if it turns out this over here is right and over there is wrong, I'm running like my freaking hair is on fire to get over to the other side because I want to be right about stuff. I'm arrogant that way. I want to be right about everything. You freaking people have no interest in being right, and I don't understand it. You just arbitrarily stand in certain areas and say, this is my area, but it's the wrong area. Yeah, but this is my area, so I'm standing here. It's so weird to me because it's like, it's almost like a circular thing. I want to be here. Why? Because Gutekunst is bad. Okay, but what if I prove to you that he's not? Well, then I'm going to, come up with some bull crap to dismiss that because I don't believe that. Why don't you believe that? Because I don't want to believe it. Why don't you want to believe it? You know what I mean? What is your freaking foundation here? Why do you want something so bad when you have no reason to believe it? I see this in politics all the time because it's like you don't know what you're talking about, but you believe it so strongly. And even when you're proven incorrect, it doesn't matter. And I think what you realize is people are emotional. They're not rational. Everybody is entirely emotional, and everything they do is emotional. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with emotion. But when you decide that emotion is going to dictate my reality, that's when you're just a freaking crazy person. You should be in a straitjacket, locked in a small padded room. Get out of society. You freak me out. Freaking psycho. Cool. All they have to show for it is 3 7th seeds and 1 playoff win. The hell does that have anything to do with what he just said? Are you saying Schneider is better? Why? Why are you saying Schneider is better? Because they won a Super Bowl. How? By Schneider magic? Does he exude magic from his pants? How did Schneider win them a Super Bowl? Explain that to me, and don't talk about GMing. Don't talk about anything you have to do regarding the draft. Ready, go. Are you going to bring up that part where he went and paid for a quarterback and got freaking lucky? Nobody knew how that was going to pan out. Look at the contract he got. That was a I don't really believe in you contract, but let's see how it goes. Yeah, he's freaking brilliant. That's what he is. Well, we didn't really get to Packer stuff. That's all right. I don't care. What is tomorrow? Sunday? It's a weekend. The way this went, probably better if nobody listens, to be honest with you. I'm gonna get out. Did anybody call on After Dark? Yeah, it's on the fence. Whatever. We'll see how it goes. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.